Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. Blender Ed, Blender HD if you want to follow me on Twitter. And it's Friday, June 17th. So you know what that means. It's Fighting Friday. It's Fighting for my arm is falling. The green screen effect is it's all over the place. Whatever. We're trying a new platform, so I don't know. You're a little. My arm disappears sometimes. My head disappears. Is that going to happen? Something like that. It'll work itself out at some point. But we're covering MMA today for a big 14-fight card for tomorrow on Draftkings. Feel free to give me those thumbs up, stummy thumbs on your first. Not the ones that disappear. Like this one disappears, but this one will stay. So give me the thummy thumbs. Give me smash the like button, the subscribe button. It even says on the bottom. I can even see it on the bottom right now. Be sure to smash it. Right, I see RC Bremen here. Good morning, Suki Singh. Suki Singh, number 2 in the chat. Didn't get here early enough. Doug Montgomery, good morning. Daniel Hutchins, yo. But if you're here for baseball will be later today. So if you want to hit that notification bell, Grinders Live, they'll be covering at 5 o'clock all the baseball stuff. Crunch Time is free. Right after that, presented by FanDuel with Kevin Roth. He'll take it's hot outside. Right, I don't know how much weather other than heat there is, but I'll be covering that. There's also a FanDuel strategy video for premium members. They betcha. That's a new site or something like that for prop betting. Live locks on the Scores and Odds channel. We got you covered. We got you covered here. So subscribe to RotoGrinders Premium. We recorded me, Mike, and Liam a 2-hour podcast on the MMA Ground and Pound, breaking down all the fights, giving you a bunch of DFS strategy, construction tips from me. Liam, knows the fighters more than me and Mike. And we go through the entire card. The expert survey should be coming out also for premium members. Alan Alexander in the chat. Hey guys, good morning. But let's get to the card. We'll switch over windows so I could. Let's see. Can I? Okay. I don't. Oh, that's too bad. Oh, there I go. There we go. Okay. Okay, so let's go over the context of tomorrow's slate. I think that's the biggest thing you should be going over first before you start building lineups, before you start looking at odds. I mean, once you look at odds, before you start looking at ownership, before you start looking at anything. Okay. Now it's a 14-fight card. Okay, so let's discuss the differences between small cards and large cards. Okay, we do this every week. Okay, small cards, you prioritize winning, right? You get 6 winners, like with only 11 fights on a slate, or 10 fights, or 9 fights. We think in terms of very similar to baseball, right? 15-game baseball slate versus a 4-game baseball slate. Well, in a 15-game baseball slate, it's more likely that since there's more teams, that there's some teams that may put up 10-plus runs. 4-game slate, less likely to happen because there's only 8 teams playing. Very similar mentality to MMA. So with 28 fighters to choose from, there's more likelihood that the top 6 fighters on the slate will all score 100-plus points, and the winning score will be, in the high 600s, low 700s or something. So like just simply winning is not as likely to be good enough to make the optimal lineup or the winning GPP lineup. So it's someone scoring, 82 points in a decision in the high 7,000s or low 8,000s. Most likely doesn't make the optimal. Okay, especially in a card we got a lot of fighters that have 40+% chances of winning inside the distance. Okay, so a little bit more likelihood for more finishes. And now we have with the salary ranges and the win odds, we see a lot of slates where like last week, for instance. Last week, we had one decent. Shevchenko was a big favorite, and then the next was Manel Kopp, and he got scratched. But Manel Kopp was like -250, and he was the second highest priced fighter on the slate. We have Duraev, who's -240. He's 8,600. Dawkins, -260, 8,700. Hawes, -270, 9,000. We have a lot of fighters. 10 out of the 14 fights on the slate feature a 2-to-1 or better favorite, which means this slate, in general, there are going to be more favorites that win than underdogs. Okay? A lot of these underdogs, we'll see a plus 200 underdog on another slate be one of the cheapest fighters on the slate. So it's a lot of much more tilted fights, not as close. I mean, 2-1, 2-1, 3-1 is not like runaway. I mean, Cody Stamen's minus 500. It's an 83 win probability based on that minus 500. So that's a substantial favorite. But it's not that much different than a 74%, right? So 74% is like almost 3-1. 83% is a little over 5-1. We only have a couple of fights like Gregory Rodriguez minus 180, 64%. So even like McGee Wells is kind of the only fight that's really in pure pick'em land. And then the other Cerrone and Lausanne and Demir kind of in the middle range. These are more like 60-40 type fights, right? 3-2 type fights. So understand the perspective that most likely on a slate where there are much more heavier favorites and a lot more of them, that the optimal lineup is going to contain much more salary. Last week, on the other hand, we had a lot of dogs. I mean, we had 2 dogs that ended up as favorites by the time the lines closed. So on that type of slate, it's much more likely that a lineup with 48,000, leaving 2,000 of salary on the table, could be optimal. This is the opposite scenario. It's much more likely that a lineup that uses most of their salary, or at least doesn't leave 2,000 on the table or something, is optimal. So these are the contextual things you should be looking at just by looking at the odds, just by looking at the win odds, the inside the distance odds, before you even look at ownership or projections or nothing, right? So you look at this and you go, okay, even regardless of duplication, most likely the winning lineup is going to 49.5 plus, right? Use most of the salary. It's going to contain 4 favorites and 2 underdogs, right? Or 5 favorites and 1 underdog, even though that type of lineup may be duplicated a little bit too much. So most likely, you're probably not going to be playing a lot of lineups that have 4 dogs in it, 3, 4, 5 dogs, leaving salary on the table, or paying up for like 2,9,500, like playing for Stamen, Yanez, and then having 3 or 4 underdogs. Those types of lineups. You're thinking of more of a mix of like 2 9Ks, 2 8Ks, 2 7Ks. That's a more likely scenario on the context of this slate. Of course, MMA, very high variance. You never know. The winning lineup, who knows? Maybe 5 dogs win with 100-plus point scores, and the optimal lineup leaves 2,700 on the table. It could happen. It can happen. So those are contextual things I look at. Now, the problem with using most of your salary, and we should all know this when it comes to MMA DFS, is that you're going to run into more duplicates. You're naturally going to run into more duplicated lineups for these large field GPPs. But it's a 14-fight slate. So there are ways to use most of your salary and get unique or under 5 dupes. Because if we now take a look at ownership, so I'm going to bring up here's the RotoGrinders ownership. And some of these figures I don't necessarily agree with, and we'll adjust them accordingly. That we got in this 9K range, Hawes 37%, Yanez 35%, but Stamen 18, Ramos 16, DePaula 13, Jasmine Jesuda Vicious 12%. Like, there are combinations here that may be unique. And then in the 8K range, that's where all the popularity is going to be. Because if you take a look at the odds differences, like, look, we got Holland plus 135 inside the distance, Dawkins plus 170 inside the distance, Duraev plus 115 inside the distance, Rodriguez plus 130 inside the distance, Cerrone plus 125 inside the distance. There are a lot of guys in this 8K range that have about the same chances of winning as some of these 9K fighters, with either equivalent or better inside the distance odds, right? More higher ceilings, right? So is there a need to even pay up in the 9K range? I think a lot of people are going to be working a lot in this 8K range, and we can see by the ownership. Holland, 32%. Cater, 40%. Obviously, the main event, 5-round fight. Dawkins, 28. Duraev, 36. Rodriguez, 39. Cerrone, 40. Jeremiah Wells, 30%. So, like, if you're playing a lineup where, like, if you're gonna play a lineup where, like, Jeremiah Wells, I said this on the MMA Ground and Pound. If you're gonna play a lineup where Jeremiah Wells is your second lowest salary fighter, the likelihood of that lineup being duped is very high. So let's run through that. I haven't done this. Maybe we can find a unique lineup or something close to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a group. I'm not building lineups. I'm just showing you this as an example. So let's build. Let me bring up so I can see it on this side of my screen. Okay, Draftkings. Okay, so I'm going to just put in all the fighters underneath Wells. So Lawson, Katudaladze, I believe I pronounced that right. Marquez, Buckley, Olidze. What we're doing here is I'm going to make it so that you can only play one of these guys. See how many lineups that could be available. Emmett, Means, Win, Silva, Oliveira. I love these large cards. I love them. Kelly and Wineland. Okay. So let's take a look. We only are allowed to play one of these guys, which means, Wells at 8K in the pick'em fight. He's technically an underdog, yes. But how many lineups can we make? Right? I'm going to start building. Can we make 300? Within the salary, and obviously within the salary cap. But you can only use one of these fighters. Now, I think we can make a lot of them, actually, because you're going to be substituting one guy out if you leave money on the table. Right? So we could still make plenty of these lineups. But a lot of them are going to be duped. Right? Because you're going to have to you're going to have to shove in like 4 8K guys into your lineup. Like, let's build 300 and see what shows up. What fighters show up in these lineups? Okay, we're almost there. 275, 280, 285. So I'm showing you how to use Lineup HQ as a research tool, even if you're not going to build 150 lineups. You can do this for single entry, 3 max. Using an optimizer as a research tool is one of the biggest benefits you could have. Okay, so here we go. Who do we get a lot of? Cerrone, right, in 8,300. Cater, Wells, Rodriguez, Duraev, Holland, right, all these 8K range guys. And then you just basically shove in some cheap guy. Who do we not get? We don't get much Stamen or Ramos or Jasmine or DePaula, right? Because you could barely ever spend 9K, over 9K on a fighter. But you get a lot of this middle range. But look how owned. Let me try to get that off. Okay, look how owned. 40%, 40%, 30%, 39, 36, 32. And look how much salary. 49.9, 50,000. Do we have some cheapies? Let's see. Salary low to high. It was running a little bit slow. Okay, 49.1. Chavez, and then basically, look, Cater, Duraev, Cerrone, Rodriguez, Wells, Chavez. I mean, look at the ownership still there, 201. This lineup is going to be duped. Look how much combination. Like, let's go to the combination calculator, okay? Which is a blunt. It's not perfect, but it'll give you a sense. Okay, so I'm going to go to the combo calculator. These are the contests from last week. I don't know if do we have a different field sizes. I think we're about the same. Let me check my phone. I think we're similarly 31 372. Okay, so let's change that. 31 372. Let's just enter them all in. Why not while we're here? Okay. So let's see. The Haymakers 11. Okay, so the Haymakers are much smaller because last week was a pay-per-view card. 11 890. The Hook is 58.82. The $5 armbar is 95.12. Knockout, I believe it's about the same, right? I got one entry in there. 300. Okay, so now only 300. And the triangle, the 3 max 200 is 194. So a little bit smaller. Okay, so we adjusted that. All the prices are the same and everything. Okay, so let's see what the product ownership of that lineup, this type of line. You're leaving 900 on the table, but you're still using, look how many, look at these fighters. So 40, 36, 40. We're not going to deal with the decimal points. 40, 36, 40, and 39, 30, 14. 30, 39, 14. Average dupes 20. Product ownership is 0.09%. In the big GPP, this lineup on average would be duped 29 times. You're leaving 900 on the table. But this combination of these 5 fighters here, right? Because you can replace Chavez with some of these guys are more owned. Right? If we go to, like, Chavez is only 14% owned here. So even if you go down to Wineland, which is the lowest owned, okay, at 6, let's just call him 6. Even it could be 7. So let's change Chavez to Wineland. This lineup is still on average duped 12 times. In addition to you, 13. And that's the lowest, right? You could fit in a higher owned fighter, a better fighter, not leave as much money on the table. So, like, just the combination of those fighters, like, that, to me, that would be a group that you never play. Like, how is it possible for you to get unique? Like, go to my lineups. By playing you're playing 5 fighters that are going to be 30+% owned. So using lineup HQ to figure these things out. Wells, Rodriguez, Cerrone, Duraev, Cater. And even if you replace one of these guys, let's say, what do we have room for? We have room for anyone. So let's say you replace Duraev with Holland. Well, Holland's 32% owned. That's not going to change much. Let's say you don't play the main event. Let's say you take out Cater and you put in Holland instead. So you take out a 40% owned fighter and you put in a 32% owned Holland. Okay? What do you get then? That's still going to be duped on average 10 times. Right? It's just these combinations, 30, 30, like playing 5 guys, 5 fighters, over 30% owned. I'm not sure if any of those lineups are not going to be duplicated too many times for it to be profitable long-term to play. Okay? So let's do that. So now that we understand that, let's put them together. Okay? So who do we got in the 30+ range? Okay. In the 30+ range, because now we're trying to figure out, okay, is there a way for us to only play one dog under 8,000 and still be unique? That's the problem we're looking to solve. If there is a solution. Okay, so let's okay, all these 30+% owned fighters, let's put into a group. Okay, so who's 30+% owned on this slate? We got Yanez. Okay, Yanez is going to be over 30. Hawes, I think Hawes is. Holland. Cater. I don't know about Dawkins. I don't know what we have for Dawkins. Let's just take a look here. 28. Okay, we'll cut him out of it. We'll cut him and Ismagulov out of it. And Emmett is 29%, which is pretty high, but we'll leave him in for now also. Okay, so we got Cater, Duraev, Rodriguez, Cerrone. Okay, so let's do that. Rodriguez, Duraev, Cerrone, and Wells. Okay. Now we're going to make it so you can't play 5 of them in a lineup, but you can play 4 of them in a lineup. I'm not sure if that's even worthwhile. Right? So let's take the 4 lowest owned. Let's just experiment using exaggeration. The 4 lowest owned out of that bunch. Okay, so who are the 4 lowest owned 30+% owned fighters? Okay, we got Wells at 30, right? We can get rid of these. Okay, Wells at 30. And that's mine. Okay, Wells at 30. Then who's next after Wells? Holland at 32. So we got 32. Duraev at 36 or even 35. 32, 35. Okay, so let's go to 32, 35, 32, 35. And who's the next one? Who's 36? Duraev is 36. Okay. So if you play the 4 lowest owned fighters, there's 2 spots left. Let's run the combinations and see. Okay, now we could go to combination. Now we could go, let's see. Let's go back here. I have to move my screen around. Okay. So we're gonna lock them in. I'm gonna turn this group off. I'm gonna turn both of them off. Okay, so I'm gonna lock in what? We got Holland, Yanez, Duraev, Wells. And let's even, like, if we keep Yanez there, I mean, obviously we have what? Average remaining salary, 75.50. There aren't going to be many. We ran this. Well, let's run this. 39. So those only because Giannis is 9,400. So 39. We put 39 in the combinations. Average dupes 9. Okay, not horrible, but still way too many dupes. This would, maybe you make this combination for the 555. Looks like the hook. You may be okay. Right? Average dupes 1. There's only 71 lineups available. Right? 39 combinations. So yeah, so probably going to be duped once. But in the knockout of the triangle, you could do that and get away with it. And that's the lowest owned. Now imagine if we plugged in Gregory Rodriguez instead of one of these guys, it would be more combinations. So let's take Yanez out of the equation because he's the most highest salary. Because that gives us less combinations. So replacing a 35% owned guy with, let's say, a 37% owned Hawes. Okay, so we're going to go back. 37%. So there. Okay. Combinations. Okay. Out of all these 4. So let's lock those in. So we got Hawes, Holland, Duraev, and Wells. And maybe we make let's make it even less salary. So let's lock in, instead of Hawes, we put in Rodriguez at 39. So 37, and let's run this. 37 to 39. Let's see how many combinations there are of the remaining 2 fighters. 83. That's what it seems like. Is it going to stop at 83? Yeah, it's going to stop at 83. We put in 83 here. Average dupes 5. Okay. Remember, average dupes. There may be some lineups in here with these 4 fighters in combination that are actually unique. And there may be some that are duplicated 10 plus times. This is just the blunt calculation. But even with these 4 fighters, most of these combinations are duped enough times. Remember, it's also a 14-fight slate. Like if it was an 11-fight slate, I may be fine with this. I may be just like, how many uniques can I find within reason? And maybe I could get away with this. But this seems like there's too many. I'm using 4 of the lowest owned out of the highest owned fighters. Not using a main event fighter. Not using Cater, the main event favorite. And even then, with 2 spots left and being able to leave as much salary on the table as I want, I still get an average dupes of 5. So maybe we look at this. Maybe we look at that group. And maybe we don't want more than 3. Okay, so let's take a look. Can we run? Remember, what are we looking to solve? The original point. Can we just play 1 dog underneath 8,000 and still and not be duped a million times? Okay, so I'm going to enable this maxed 3 now, and only 1 dog. Okay. So let's see what let's unlock this and let's see what happens. What are we building? What do these lineups look like? With a maximum of 3 of all these 30+% owned fighters, and no more than 1 underdog under 8,000, because obviously technically Wells is an underdog. Okay, we're getting lineups. So I want to see what the ownership of these lineups look like. Now, if you want like MMA takes, you may be listening, you may be watching and going, why aren't we talking about the fights? Why aren't we talking about the actual fights? What's going to happen in them? Go subscribe to RotoGrinders Premium. We took 2 hours, MMA ground and pound. We talked about all of that, compared it to ownership and all of that. This is a DFS strategy show, so I'm dealing with DFS. This is DFS strategy, especially in MMA. How do we build lineups that are not duplicated 100 times? Right? That's like number one. That's like you're going to be building lineups that if you build 20 lineups for the large field contest and they're all duped 30 plus times, you'll lose. You lost. Good luck doing that over and over again and see how much money you'll. Yeah, when you win, you get $2,000, and if you don't, you never win 100,000. You never win 5 figures. You never. It's a losing proposition. Okay, so you're getting a lot of Ismagulov, right? You're still playing a lot of the mid-range stuff, right? Okay, so take a look. So you barely get any Stamen. You barely get any Yanez. You're still spending in that mid-range. You're still getting Cater. Cater versus Emmett. So you take a look. As far as ownership is concerned, let's look high to low on ownership. These are still high-owned lineups. Okay, so here we go with Emmett, Ismagulov, Rodriguez, Cerrone, Dawkins, Duraev. 49.9. 197 is still a lot. Still a lot of ownership. So let's put this in the combo calculator. Okay. I'm going to move this off to the side. Makes it easy for us. Easy for me, at least. I'll bring that back in a second. Okay. So this lineup is obviously one combination. And let's take a look. This is the highest owned cumulative ownership sum lineup. 29, 23, 39, 40, 28, 36. 24 dupes. Yeah, we're dead. Yeah, you don't do this. Now let's take a look at the lowest owned in total ownership, right? Ownership sum. Okay. I have it on my screen on the other side. It's Wineland, McGee, Cerrone, Jasmine, Holland, Cater. This may work. This may work. It still has 2 40% owned fighters and a 32% owned fighter, but it also has a 12, a 12, and a 6 in it. So let's take a look at this. Okay. So you get Wineland at 6, McGee at 12, Cerrone at 40, Jasmine at 12, Holland at 32, and Cater at 40. There we go. Boom. We got one. We got one. Spends $50,000 in salary. Okay. That's a very big key. I mentioned this on the MMA Ground and Pound podcast, and it's going to be in my expert survey. My hot take of the week is that the winning lineup in the large field GPP, either the winning lineup or the optimal lineup, is gonna be unique, yet still spend $50,000 in salary. And maybe it turns out to be 49.9, and I'm slightly off. But there are a lot more uniques. There are going to be a lot more lower duplicated lineups available to you at higher salaries because it's a 14-fight card, and a lot between 8,600 and 9,500. There's so many combinations of those fighters. And then in the low range, there's so many combinations of those fighters that as long as not every single chalk piece smashes, that it's still possible that a 50K lineup will be unique. Now there's less unique. I mean, it's not like there's a lot of them, but not like last week. Last week, I mean, you could barely find any lineups that didn't leave more than 500 on the table, that were less than 10 dupes, less than 20 dupes, 11 fight slate. This you can. So this lineup would be fine. Of course, it relies on Wineland and McGee. And hey, if this goes through, this wins, 50,000. Is it 50,000, 100,000? Actually, the average dupes, this is not going to be unique. Like, average is like 2, right? It's you and someone else. So this lineup still may be duped once with someone. With 2 40% owned fighters. So it can be done. Because remember our what we were trying to hypothesize. Can we build a lineup with only one fighter under 8,000? Now, if you're playing 2 fighters under 8,000, now there's a lot more combinations. But I'm just looking, how many combinations that aren't going to be duped too many times you're only playing one underdog, especially on a slate where we have a lot more heavy favorites. on the slate. And how come my target number is just getting stuck there? Okay, there we go. Yeah, my green screen effect slows down my computer a bunch. So let's go here. Total ownership, low to high. Let's look at the next one. 49.9, Kelly, McGee, Cerrone, Jasmine, Dawkins, Cater. So this is very similar to this lineup. It just has a 10% Kelly over a 6% Wineland. So let's look at that. Let's change Wineland to 10%, and what does that do? Well, now you're getting to 2 dupes, you and 2 other people on average. Maybe this lineup ends up unique. It's possible. Maybe this lineup ends up being duped 4 or 5 times. That's why I said average. This is a blunt methodology on doing this. So now once we get up to Tony Kelly, 10%, let's go down a little bit more. Okay, Gloria DePaula. So we're basically replacing Jasmine with Gloria. So we're adding another percent to the 12 over here. Okay, now okay. Still in very under 5, possibly unique, most likely duped 1 or 2 times. This may be okay. Then we go down here. Kelly, Wells, Ismagulov. Okay, now let's put in some other figures. Okay, so we got Kelly, Wells at 30, 23 for Ismagulov, 12 for Jasmine, 28 for Dawkins and Cater. Okay, that's looks like under 5. But you see, we're getting close. I mean, if I scroll down a bunch, I'm going to scroll down a bunch to maybe the 150s range, 155. So how about like Kelly, Wells? Okay, Kelly, Wells, Ismagulov, Duraev. So we're replacing this 20. Okay, let's go. So let's go. Kelly, Wells, Ismagulov at 23, Duraev at 36, Paula at 13, and Cater at 40. Well, now we're starting to get to almost 5. So there really aren't that many lineups, right? If we move up, let's say to the 160 total ownership range, somewhere like that. Let's go through. How about something like this? How about like Win at 13, McGee at 12, Ismagulov at 23, 39 Gregory Rodriguez, Holland at 32, and Cater at 40. Yeah, now you're getting past 5. So if you cut off your total ownership in lineup HQ, you could probably find some of these lineups. And remember what we're going over. Can we play a lineup with only 1 dog underneath 8,000? So Wells you could play, but anything 1 person underneath there, and it still be, reasonably enough unique. There aren't many of those lineups. In fact, there's few enough of those lineups that I probably will not be doing it. I'll eliminate them. I won't even have them. Okay? And this is while using only 3 of that bucket of fighters. Let's say, can we do it with 2? I'm not sure. Let's see. We're trying to solve this problem. So we found some lineups. So now let's go to player groups. Say, what happens if we, out of this bucket of 30+% owned fighters, we play no more than 2 of them, right? Which look at all the fighters. Half the fighters that we're putting in here are in this mid 8K range, and we only want to play 1 dog under 8K. Is it possible? Let's even see if it's possible. I wouldn't be surprised if I just did that and it exploded. So hold it. So step back from your computer, take out your headphones. Maybe it's going to explode. It's going to say, no, you can't do that. But let's see. I knew that we were going to get some lineups. Okay, so the decent enough lineups. Okay, so max of 2. Right, because what it's going to do is it's going to shove in Ismagulov, Dawkins, McGee, the other 8K fighters that are not 30+% owned. Okay, so I overestimated whether or not it would explode. But this is a max of 2 of these mid-range. Of course, Giannis is in there at 9,400 because he'll be 30+% owned. So let's see what these lineups look like. We'll do the same thing like we did before. Look at the highest owned and look at the lowest owned and see if there's uniqueness somewhere. Because we're trying to get off the common builds. But I don't want to dismiss and say that's the common build. I don't want it anywhere near it. Well, maybe there are plenty of lineups inside of that common construction that there's still plenty unique. There may still be lineups that are under 5 dupes. Okay? So here we go with the highest owned lineup, cumulatively. Let's go. Okay, 173. McGee, Emmett, Ismagulov, Rodriguez, Cerrone, Dawkins. Okay? This looks like it's going to be duped. Let's go. Let's go over to our combo calculator. Okay, let me try to move my mouse properly. Okay, so we got McGee at 12, Emmett 29, 23 for Ismagulov, 39 for Gregory Rodriguez, 40 for Donald Cerrone, and 28 for Dawkins. Yeah, 10. Yeah, no good. We're no good. 49.5 in salary. Still no good. We're no good. Over 10. Small field, yeah, you could do whatever the hell you want. Right? You're playing the 555, feel free to play that lineup. Perfectly fine. Now let's go to the lowest owned. Only playing 2 out of that bucket. And only 1 dog under 8,000. Okay. We get a very similar lineup that we had before. Right? We get that Wineland line, 118 total ownership. 6 for Wineland, 12 for McGee, Demir Ismagulov, 23, Jasmine, 12, 28 for Dawkins. So no main event fighter, and 32 for Holland. This is fine. You're good. You're done. This is a unique lineup. 118. Now, I don't necessarily love the lineup from a ceiling perspective. Getting ceiling results, because you're going to need 100-plus points pretty much. You need Wineland to knock out Stamen, McGee to grapple screw Wells, Ismagulov to actually do something in one of these fights. Yeah, I mean, this is just a very contrarian lineup with a lot of guys that, you have to fade a lot of high scores possibly on. You have to fade a Hawes knockout, Cerrone Lauzon fight going the distance for some odd reason, Duraev not putting up 150 points. You're going to have to fade a lot of stuff here. Or just hope that you get a ton of knockouts. Okay, so let's go down a little bit. So we found that that's unique. Yes, okay. We know that a lot of Eddie Wineland lineups are going to be unique. He's going to be the lowest owned fighter. He's the lowest price. Right? He's also the biggest dog. So let's go to that 140 range. Right? Because we're going up a little bit more. So let's go to that first 140 lineup. Okay, here's one at total 140. Okay, we got Kelly. So we don't got Wineland in the lineup at least. So Kelly at 10, McGee at 12, Ismagulov at 23, Rodriguez at 39, Cerrone at 40, and DePaula at 13. Well, this isn't that bad. Average dupes 1. 1, 2, 3, something around there. This could be doable. This is more of an under 5 lineup. This could be unique, depending on ownership. Because remember, we're going by RotoGrinders ownership. Maybe DePaula is not 13 and she's 10. Maybe Cerrone doesn't come in at 40. Maybe Cerrone comes in at 36. Maybe some of these guys are a little bit lower owned. And then next thing you know, this is a unique lineup. So at 140, this isn't bad. 49.4. Let's go up to 150 now. 150 total ownership. And let's take a look at the product ownership and the combinations of that. Okay, so we got Chavez. Okay, here's the first 150 lineup. So we got Chavez at 14. 14. Oh. Remember, I'm trying to do everything at once. Chavez at 14. 30 for Wells. There's a 49.7 lineup. But Demir at 23. 39 for Rodriguez. Dawkins at 28. And DePaula at 13. So yeah, 4 dupes. This could be an under 5 lineup. This could be an under 5 lineup. It also could be, maybe it's only dupe once. It could be unique, maybe. Okay, so we're starting to get into the range where we're more in the under 5s and not in the uniques. So there is a way. There are plenty of lineups, because I'm scrolling all the way up here on my screen. We're using 2 of that 30% owned fighter bucket and only 1 dog. There are unique lineups there. So to me, that's where I would be starting from. Oh, we even get the questions even being put on the screen. Will this sheet be a part of the next Theory of DFS course resources? Yes. Something like this. Maybe not this exact sheet, but yes. A combination calculator, something like this, will be available to you. It's not that hard to do yourself. Trust me, it isn't. To do what I did in this sheet that you're looking at, even if you're a bare beginner in Excel, you should be able to do this. This ain't hard. This is just, you're using basically basic algebra. Just you're using addition, subtraction, multiplication. Sometimes you're not doing much, right? You're multiplying, right? What's the product ownership? It's just these columns multiplied by each other. I mean, look, product of D9 through D9 14. Right, that's it. Like this isn't complicated Excel stuff. Now James, he's the one putting these tools together. He'll be doing something a little bit more complex. That you could still, that's not hard, but I mean, probably putting a little bit more time than I've put into something like this. I don't mind doing this stuff manually. He's more likely going to make something like this type of sheet where you could put in a sheet with all the projections and all the ownership and have the fight, like you could just select, drop down, select. I have these guys in my lineup. What's the total ownership like? And you could put in your lineups. We're going to try to make it that like this type of combo calculator where if you wanted to go into a lineup HQ and build 300 lineups and then export them into a lineups file with all the 6 slots, that you'd be able to go here and cut and paste that in and it tell you all this information about each lineup. Like that's what we're kind of working on. So you're not going to have to go individually. We'll make one where you can do it individually like this, but also one where you could just, as long as you have the fighter names and the projections and the salaries, which you can essentially download, from lineup HQ, the slate file, it'll match everything up and then tell you, and then, okay, what lineups do you have? Let's compare them and calculate everything together. That is what we're working on, yes. How are you making the determination of what product ownership equals the amount of dupes? Just multiplying the number. This is in literally the method that I taught. It's a blunt method because it doesn't take into account correlation. It doesn't take into account salary dynamics. So it's blunt. It's an estimate that I teach in the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. 15-hour audio DFS masterclass that you can pick up at theoryofdfs.com. So all I'm doing is multiplying this times the entries. There's 31,372 entries. I'm assuming that 0.01% of that is going to be this lineup or whatever that number is. It's probably 0.01 something or other. So if you multiply the product ownership times the field size, right, you should get the number of lineups because it's percentage. Let's say the product ownership was 10%. So you're saying that 10% of lineups in this contest will have this lineup, will have this combination or something like that, right? And let's say we go, that's why you have to figure out the combinations like we did before. Obviously, when you're putting in all the fighters, there's only one combination of 6 fighters that you're absolutely putting in. But let's say, for instance, we take that out just to understand what we're doing. So let's say what you wanted to do as an experiment. I'm gonna take off the player groups. So let's say as an experiment, if you wanted to use both lineup HQ and the combo calculator as a tool, and you're like, what combinations are too high owned in general, right? So I could go here and I could lock 4 guys. I could lock 3 guys, 2 guys. Our max is 300 on building, but if you use Excel, you could build them even. We're gonna try. We're gonna try. I'm not guaranteeing anything that you'll be able to build these lineups in Excel, but I'm not sure if we get there. So what you do is like, okay, I want to lock. I want to play Cater, Duraev, Cerrone, and Yanez. And there's 7,450 remaining average salaries. Okay, I want to play these guys together. So that's 40, 36, 40, 35. So I put that in. 40, 36, 40, 35. And neither of these. Okay? That's 2.02% of lineups of 31,372 or whatever it is on the contest. So if you really look, and that's why this number is 632, right? It's 2.02% of 31,372 is 632 lineups that have this combination. Okay? I don't know what the other two fighters are, but this combination, 632 lineups. So how many if there were 632 combinations, the average dupes would be one, right? They're representing one of each of the combinations. Are you sure about that? No. That's why I say average dupes. So how many combinations of these four fighters are there? Well, I'll just run. I'm just going to run until lineup HQ tells me I can't build any more lineups. Right? There can't be that many. Average salary is $74.50. Okay, 33. It ends at 33. So now you put it into 30, you put 33 in. 33 combination. This represents 2% of the lineups, 632 lineups. And there's only 33 combinations of them. Average dupes, 19. 632 divided by 33. This ain't complicated. I told you before, this ain't complicated. Now, some of these dupes, some of these combinations, the high salary ones, we take a look at them, like maybe the Wells Chavez, like this one at 197. We go by total ownership. Like right here, we have average dupes 19. But this lineup over here, this could be duplicated 30 times. Right, average dupes, because we're estimating that 632 lineups have this combination. Maybe this is duplicated 70 times. And then we look at one of the lower owned lineups out of this 33. And although we have average dupes 19, this lineup leaves 1,300 on the table. Has that combination, but it has Chavez and Wineland in it. Maybe this lineup, because of the salary dynamics and the low-owned Wineland, maybe this is only duplicated twice. Maybe this is a unique lineup. Out of these 33 combinations, maybe some of these combinations are duped 30 times. And the other combinations maybe duped 2 or 3 times or 1 time. You don't know. It's not going to tell you in this case. It's not this combo calculator ain't going to tell you, but it'll tell you the average dupes. So can you find lineups even with this combination that could potentially be unique? Yes. But most of them aren't going to be. Most of them are actually going to be heavily duplicated. So if you're using a blunt method of trying to find more unique lineups, less duplicate, at least under 5s, doing this and saying, okay, well, I don't want this combination, and just eliminate it. Set a group and say nope. Set a group and say nope. Set a group and say nope. And do that and find those buckets where you're more likely to find unique or less duplicated combinations. Of course, you need all the numbers right also. The ownership has to be good, or at least directionally accurate. You think someone's going to be 32% owned and ends up being 15% owned, that's going to dramatically affect the types of lineups that you're building, right? Someone that you think is going to be 22% owned and ends up at 38% owned, you're going to have a lot of lineups that you thought were less duplicated that are heavily duplicated. Okay, so you got to be good on that. That's why I said, like, even in our ownership, like at Lausanne, we have it as 11. I don't think he's going to be 11. He'll be more like 20. Right, Gloria DePaula, maybe 13. Right, Stamen may not be 18, maybe be 22. Right, I don't think we're directionally accurate enough. But like Duran Wynn, I think is going to be a little bit more owned instead of 13, maybe 18. Now, some of the moving, 3 or 4 points in ownership here and there shouldn't affect you that dramatically if you're diving into buckets where it says the average dupes is like 1. Because the worst case scenario, if you're off by, maybe at 5 percentage points in total, maybe you go from a unique lineup to a lineup that's duped twice. Okay? On the fringes, however, 5% difference could mean the difference of, here's a lineup that's that you thought was going to be duplicated 8 times that ends up being duplicated 21 times. Right? You have much more leeway when if you're going to be off by 4 or 5 percentage points on the low end than say, I'm going to build a lot of under 5s, under 10s, and they turn out to be under 10s and under 20s. And it's like now your expected value of your portfolio starts plummeting. It's exponential, right? Every duplication, it's much more exponential. Once you get to a certain point, it doesn't matter anymore. Once you get past 20, typically, doesn't matter all that much. And then once you get up to like 100, I mean, like really, like you're looking for under fives at worst, especially on a 14 fight card. If you build 150 lineups on a 14 fight card and end up with like half your lineups over 20s, like just you're probably one of the most unprofitable MMA DFS players for large field GPPs. Like that's you're losing more money than people that just randomly mash their head against the keyboard. Like that's how bad that is. Okay, so showing you this process this is what I do on Fridays, and this is the same type of mentality you could be taking into small option contests, which we're talking about NFL Showdown, NBA Showdown, small field golf events, MLB, any type of showdown, MLB, 2-game MLB slates, 2-game NFL slates, 2-game NBA slates, or just there aren't that many combinations of players because there's only so many players to choose from. So today and tomorrow in MMA, we got 28 fighters to choose from. So that sounds like NFL show. That sounds like showdown contests, 2-game slates, 3-game slates, where it's like, even in baseball, it's like, oh, it's a 2-game MLB slate. How do I build a lineup that makes sense, that is unique? I don't want to split 12 ways. Same type of, you could do the same. You could use the combo calculator for that also. Right? Of course, it doesn't take into account correlation or salary dynamics. So just understand that it's a blunt tool. You would have to run actual lineups in order to see what combinations possibly can't exist anyway. Right? Because based on this combo calculator, it's just assuming that it can make, here are the 33 combinations and whatever of this ownership or whatever. But I mean, if you don't know the combinations that are possible, then you go, oh, okay, I can't play these 4 fighters together. Yeah, but it's possible there's 300 combinations. It's possible there's only 2. High salary, low salary. Like, it's not more likely, like for instance, correlation wise, Yanez lineups are more likely to have Josh Emmett in it than Calvin Kattar. Now, why is that? Well, Yanez is 9,400, so you're using more of your salary. Calvin Kattar is 8,800, but Josh Emmett 7,400. More if you're playing Stamen and Yanez both in your lineup, right? You're more likely there are going to be more combinations that have Emmett in it than have Kattar, the main event tomorrow. Just based on price. Because if you play Kattar in this lineup, your average remaining salary is 7,433 for 3 spots. How many combinations are there of those 3 for only 7,400? Not many. Not as many. You take out Kattar and you put in Emmett, average remaining player salary is 7,900. A lot more combinations. So even the combinations of Stamen plus Yanez is much more likely to have, out of that bucket of combinations, it could be that 80% of those combinations have Emmett and 20% of the combinations have Kattar in it. That's what I mean by salary dynamics and correlation. You go, oh, correlation in MMA, one fight has nothing to do with the other. I'm not talking about sport-based correlation. I'm talking about construction-based correlation. Imagine, let's say you play Stamen, Yanez, and Ramos in the lineup, the 3 most expensive. Like, you can't even have Kattar in your lineup, right? Because you can't even fit the other 2 guys in. So any lineup with Stamen, Yanez, and Ramos together in it, the correlation with Kattar is 0. There is no combination with Calvin Kattar. So think in terms of making the optimal lineup. Let's say Stamen, Yanez, and Ramos all score 150 points. Let's just say. At that point, does it matter what Calvin Kattar scores? No lineup could have Calvin Kattar and those 3 fighters. Calvin Kattar would legitimately just have to outscore one of these guys. Or some other combination, right? An underdog. There are other ways to make it happen. So that's what I mean by correlation of players in your lineup based on salary dynamics. The same thing in other sports for positions, right? It's like on DraftKings, there's no utility spot. So if Jose Ramirez and Manny Machado have a correlation of 0, because you cannot play them together. And of course, the correlation, lineups that have Machado are more likely to have Jurickson Profar. or Luke Voigt in it. Why? Because they're both on the Padres. There's less correlation with Stephen Kwan. Even though some of the price, Trent Grisham versus Stephen Kwan at the same price, they're going to be more Machado Grisham lineups than Machado Kwan lineups. Only because more people, you correlate, you stack more in MLB. So that has to be taken in consideration when you compute the number of combinations. This combo calculator doesn't do that. So that's why it's a broad, blunt way of doing so. But look, I showed you how you could use a very simple thing in Excel and lineup HQ yourself. Just sign up for RotoGrinders Premium. You'll get this. You'll get the projections. You'll get the ownership. You'll get the MMA Ground and Pound podcast, 2 hours of us breaking down the fights and DFS strategy. You'll get the expert survey. You'll get everything, and all the stuff for baseball. You'll get NFL stuff. You'll get that's coming up soon, right? We're gonna get golf. The golf's going. U.S. Open's going on, right? Okay, you get golf also. You get a lot of stuff, even in the dog days of summer. So go to rotogrinders.com/premium and get that. And then a lot of the concepts that we talked about today, they're directly out of the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. If you want a nice structured education of these concepts, mathematics, this isn't complex math. You don't have to be a PhD in applied mathematics to win at DFS. You have just some amount of mathematical concepts. You can understand the concepts and apply them decently enough, you could be a profitable DFS player. So how to think like that, how to think probabilistically, how to think in terms of combinations and permutations, all the fancy words. Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports, theoryofdfs.com, 15-hour audio DFS masterclass. And as I announced on Twitter, a sequel will be coming out next month, and that will include a whole bunch of tools like this in Excel. This is Google Sheets, but a little bit more. Excel is a little bit more powerful for some stuff. So it'll include another 10 to 15 hours of audio talking about more like this. To me, this is an application of concepts. The Theory of DFS, the first course, is a conceptual course. How to think like a professional DFS player. The second course is how to apply those concepts for profitable strategies. Which obviously you could, if you go through this course for 15 hours, you'll be able to do that yourself. You'll understand the 3 levers of DFS. You'll understand conceptually how to do everything. But then people need, okay, what's the next step? If you're an advanced player, okay, I get those concepts, but I want to apply them much more consistently and much more profitably in the long run. That's what the next course is all about. So that'll come out late next month. I'll be working on that right after July 4th. James is already working on the Excel tools. And if you have any feedback, you could always tweet me at BlenderHD. If there's something you want to see that maybe I haven't thought about or something, suggestions, just let me know. And I'm always in the Blenders Game Theory channel, right? So subscribe to our premium. You get that. That's full access to me. You can post anything you want there. I answer everything. And then we also have 3 or 4 coaching calls on Zoom per month where you could come on and I coach you privately, right? In a group setting. So it's like, think of like a little AA meeting or something. You just come on video, audio, you can share your screen, and it's never recorded. You could show your results. You could do whatever you want. And it's your time. And I think the next one we have is Sunday at 3, I believe. Or did we just do one on Sunday? Or was it Monday? When's the next one? Let me take a look. Yes, Monday. Monday at 8. Monday at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. So if you subscribe to RotoGrinders Premium, join the Blenders Game Theory channel in our Discord, and you get that doesn't cost anymore. People ask me about private coaching. I go, I don't offer private coaching. I come out, here's a course, and if you want coaching more intimate setting, just subscribe to RotoGrinders. I'm in there. That's why I'm here. Now, of course, I do this show 5 days a week, so you could ask anything here also. I don't know what I would say to you privately. You should see my personality. I'm not holding anything back. Oh, I'll tell you privately, but not publicly. No, I tell everything publicly, right? Just like the just like my green screen effect publicly. It's like, whatever. We're using StreamYard or whatever, and it's whatever. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. But give me those thumbs ups on your way out the door. Thummy thumbs, thummy thumbs, thummy thumbs. Don't dupe me. I showed you how to make less duplicated lineups. Hopefully you don't get the same lineups that I do. So try not to dupe me tomorrow in MMA. But we got Grinders live later today, 5 o'clock Eastern. They'll go over the big MLB slate for today, Dean and the guys, and then Roth with the weather. He'll pretty much say that it's hot. It's hot everywhere. And they'll go over leading you right up until lock. Hit the notification bell. You'll know when they go live if you subscribe to this channel. And then I will see you. I will see you back on the other side on Monday. Mondays with McCool. We'll be talking still. We always talk about DFS strategy here. We don't necessarily talk about this is how you attack the slate and talking about the fighters or the baseball players or whatever. I just answer your questions like I always do about DFS strategy on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.